Ash, and we'll get back in there for our YouTube viewers. Am I up? Am I up? Check one, two. Check microphone. Yes, I'm there. I can see my face on YouTube. All right, cool. Uh, so this is the YouTube link. If you're having issues with campus, you can always check out the tube. Um, so we're working on all our different projects. Yeah, we've had sort of like a loose structure or looser structure to the learn to code classes this week. On Monday we built our newsletter application to kind of automate sending out newsletters. Yesterday we kind of uh, looked back at a pull request that was made on the newsletter application in GitHub. Um, and then started kind of tooling around with OBS and trying to figure out if we could set up a sort of moderation bot uh, for the YouTube stream. We got kind of blocked by this issue that we usually have with working with vibe coding, where we have to start inputting credentials and I on this specific stream, I don't have access. I'm not elevated enough to set up the credentials for the stream to get the YouTube live chat API. But these are things you learn when you're coding. Um, I kind of wanted on this beautiful hot Wednesday morning uh, to kind of see where your heads are at in your coding journey, and fill those gaps. Are there specific places that you feel like you're lacking knowledge? And I know this feels like a vague and sort of open-ended question, and that's because it is. Because people, myself, definitely, I fall victim to this. It's hard to know what you don't know, you know? Like it's hard to expressively say like, oh, this is a gap in my knowledge that I don't have. But I wanted to kind of walk through maybe blockers that we're having in our current coding projects, things that are gaps in our knowledge of coding environments, things we want to learn. Um, and walk through my process for like targeting uh kind of pain points in my understanding of code, or like for me personally, something that like helps me sort of brainstorm, brain dump like what I don't know is the things that I don't like doing. Sometimes they're just horrible things that I don't want to do, and they're like boring and meticulous. Other times it's because I don't know how to do it, and uh, I I work that thing up on a pedestal of being so complex, this thought form that I'll never be able to understand. That then it kind of like mutates into this like anti-talent or anti-skill, where it's like, oh, I don't do that, and I never do. I don't, I'm really bad at setting up WebRTC chat rooms. I just don't know how to do it. I don't want to do it. I'm never going to do it. Or like I'm really bad at working with SQL. Somebody else can work with the database. Like, this is not my cup of tea. Uh, yeah, trying to teach something to others will show you what you understand versus what you don't really quick. Case in point, I'm here right now metacognitioning the proof of that, right? There's a bunch of things that I don't like doing with code. There's a bunch of things that I don't know how to do with code. I feel like the the typical heuristic of how we learn to code, whether it's in boot camps or watching YouTube tutorials or taking a computer science course in college. Way too high level, way too like uh you're gonna get from point A to point Z, but you're gonna have to figure out what letters are in between. It's the whole like draw an owl situation. I don't know if y'all are familiar with this. Draw an owl meme. Uh yeah, here we go. Open image in new tab. Oh
Now
my
draw
God, it's
the
just
owl.
yeah, it's like draw two circles. Now draw the rest of the owl, right? That's what we get. That's what we get with our YouTube tutorials sometimes, That's what we get with when we're and when we're vibe coding too. It's like we're getting stuck in this place of like when I really look at some of the code that I allowed Claude to like heavily vibe code for me. No offense to Claude, and this may differ from some of the other heads at the multiverse school, but it can be a train wreck. It can be full of redundancies, full of vulnerabilities, things that are potential leaks, not kind of like set up to factor in edge cases that are pretty basic, like what if we have a user that was born on New Year's Day? Oh, it's going to drop the entire database for that. Anyway, little things like that are important. So I'm going to check the chat and see if y'all came up with some issue, some things that you've wanted to build or issues you have in your coding journey that we can discuss. This person says, I lack knowledge on how to navigate VS Code just in general. That's a big one. I need help figuring out how to architect, structure my code, and things like best practices. I have a whole list, actually. Maybe we can all add items to a list and upvote ones other people put up so the biggest ones float to the top. Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that actually. I'll really quickly spin up a little upvote website. Uh, all right. So, and the VS Code thing is we can do that while we're doing this. So I'm in VS Code. I'm on a Windows machine. VS Code, you have your view set up. Sometimes you're not going to see this terminal open. Sometimes VS Code opens like this for you. Sometimes VS Code will open to no project in here. All right, well, it didn't do that for me. It just opened to the last project I was in. But if it opens with no project, uh, the project view of VS Code, you're going to want to open to the folder that you're working in. So I am going to go to this Genius Mode daily skill tree because that is where I have some code for really quickly spinning up this upvote situation for you. So you see how we don't see a terminal on VS Code yet? We're not really actively like using a console on Windows with VS Code until we open that terminal. You could access it on Windows from opening up a PowerShell terminal, but that doesn't give you access to all the sort of like Unix commands that you'd want to have when working with VS Code, or if you're working from like Linux VM for your server. There's so many different issues with uh, having PowerShell open in one window and VS Code in the other. And the cool thing that VS Code does is it allows you to open a terminal within the IDE that that will access the project that you're working on. So that's actually the wrong one. Um, sorry, close that. So we'll open recent. We'll go to the daily skill tree. Um, the terminal's open here. I got some garbage in the terminal. When your terminal is full of garbage and you just want the space to think, you can clear it like that. And I can my air conditioner, and I really hope that my power doesn't go out, because it's been doing that lately. So if I disappear all of a sudden, it's because my power went out, because that's where we're at. Um, I mean, it says kill terminal. So yeah, you can clear. So this is a PowerShell terminal. So if I type certain uh, Linux commands within the PowerShell terminal, it's gonna fail on me, right? I have Claude set up in Linux. I don't have it as a path within my Windows, so that's not that's not gonna work. So I will clear that. And what I want to do is you have all these options for different terminals that you can open. I'll open up this Ubuntu WSL. Uh, Windows Standard Linux. What does WSL stand for? Uh, Windows subsystem for Linux. All right. So this is something that they put on. So it's a Linux environment that's directly on Windows 10 and 11. You don't need a VM anymore. You don't need to do like the dual boot situation. And it's a fast, lightweight way to use your sort of GNU and GNU and Linux tools. So I find that Claude works better from Linux for me. That might not be the same case for you. So, um, uh, wait, there is a what's the command? There's a command to make it so that your terminal opens to the folder that you're working in. It keeps on going to this all right, deploy.sh is the deploy.sh. Ah, okay, okay. It's opening just the file. So you want to open the right workspace. Um, Here we go. All right. Sweet. Cool. So now we're in this workspace. Claude, dangerously skip permissions. Claude opens up, and they're doing their things. Cool. Hey Claude, I would like to deploy a page to the website that's like subdirectory upvote that allows users to um, basically add suggestions for things that they want to learn to code, and then users can also upvote things, and it will rank them based off of people's upvotes. Such a dumb way to ask that. My bad. So now Claude's doing their thing. Um, the user should not have to be signed in to do this. It should just be kind of a standalone page. Thank you. And the user should only get one upvote on each choice. All right, so Claude's doing its thing. I need help figuring out how to architect slash structure my code. All right, so maybe even a step by step of how to move through your project, brainstorm and research existing items, security considerations, mainly listening in as I'm learning to code for the first time as of about July. Mm, how about a guide into the afterworld? What's that mean? I'm I'm intrigued. Oh yeah, code dot will open the code in the directory. So uh
Job is done.
wonderful. All right. All right, so right now Claude is working on giving us this sort of like upvote situation. Um so somebody in the chat uh uh like help me out, remember help me remember the shortcut to opening up the file that you're looking at in the console, right? So
Job is done.
when you're in a console, you can like navigate different parts of uh your computer just like through text commands, right? Console just like text navigation, right? Um, so right now I'm in daily skill tree. I could press LS. I have like some personal files in here. Um, I can go into different folders. CD open spec LS. That gives me a view of what's happening there. If I do code dot, it will open up another Claude or another VS Code IDE window um, that is the sort of the file that we were in within the console. This is helpful if you
Job is
find
done.
yourself navigating to places within your file tree that are not um, that are not a part of uh, what you're actively looking at. So imagine your where you are in the console, kind of like a tape head or uh, or your mouse or a your mouse cursor or like your car on a road, right? But like what you're looking at on the screen, on like in the actual panels themselves, can differ from that. So like we're in open spec right now. I can't always navigate to open spec up here. Um, but if I wanted that view to just match the open spec file, I could run this code dot and it will pull open that folder. But check this out. I don't have access to whatever's in the parent folder of OpenSpec in this VS Code window, um, which I know it like feels a little bit confusing. Yeah, all right. I'm building an enterprise level app out of pure rage. That it doesn't exist yet, but I'm a noob. Claude is currently my only handholder. Any suggestion of where to learn from others' mistakes would rock. Um, where to learn from others' mistakes. What was the uh, what were they called? Data Cloud, uh, Anthropic. What was the Anthropic Prod Delete? What were they? I forget the name of the company, but we talked about it last week. Uh, they were working with Anthropic on it was a educational or like a academic application that had over 25,000 documents um, in its database, journal articles, student data, and Claude like wrote did some weird there was a database, like a staging database, that was full of mock data, um, and they wanted to clean the staging database, keeping specific data, and then uh, they had like locally stored environment variables that were actually credentials for the production server. And so Claude generated a command that basically deleted the production database and kept the mock database, right? Um, I'm gonna say, like, if the goal is to uh, build uh, any sort of program that handles uh, user data, um, that handles money as well. Like if you're building an enterprise, this is implying like handling data or money. So like understand the state of your code, understand the lines of your code. Truth of the matter is that
Oh no.
suggestions of where to learn from others' mistakes right now are far-reaching. There's a lot of them. Ooh, it looks like I froze on. Looks like I froze on here. There we go. I am going to refresh. Uh, there's a lot of places to look. People are making mistakes daily with Claude and vibe coding in general. I think we're gonna experience like sort of a not so much like an economic bubble burst, but like a technical bubble burst when you know all of these people that are doing like important work are laid off, and we now have to like rely on the applications that were built kind of haphazardly. Um, Personally, identifiable data and payment card industry things are important to know about if you handle people's info and payment info. Yeah, this is all uh, really important stuff. Let's see where Claude is at with this. Deployed and live. All right, so we have this suggestions page. Um, what should we learn to code? I'll put that here, and I will put it in the chat here as well. What are you having issues with at the moment? Think about your blockers. Think about uh, you know, kind of the gaps in your knowledge. Um, Suggest a topic. I'm gonna try not to because I'm teaching here, and I there's a lot of things that I want to learn to code, but I'm gonna try not to uh, fall into like the halo effect where like what I have issues with become what everyone else in the class has issues with. I really want to know um, uh, what you want to learn. And feel free to post it in the chat or mic up and or post it to the suggestions page. understanding APIs and interacting with them, reverse engineering them. Easy. Um, that's a really good thing to learn. And I don't mean easy like, oh, that's this is like base level. I love APIs. My favorite is the Pokey API. We can build it into the site right now. Yeah, there's like a Pokemon API that has all the Pokemon in it. But reverse engineering them is important, right? So let's pull up in the Pokey API. Ba, 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 ba. All right, cool. So sometimes when you look up APIs, you don't even need to like sort of reverse engineer them because the documentation will have a resource for it, you know? And that's cool. Like the Poke API uses Ditto as their example. Um, but so when you submit this link here, it's gonna provide you with a JSON output of uh, of this content. And so this is what APIs do, right? This looks stressful, right? Uh, Final Fantasy. This looks a little bit more manageable, right? Reverse engineering an API is just a matter of looking at what the output is that's being provided, this JSON output. So what do we have from here? We got the Pokemon's abilities. We even have as far as .og files that are the Pokemon's cries, right? Um, and we can play. Oh my fucking god! I'm so sorry to our YouTube YouTube users. That was really sharp and intense, and that is not what Ditto sounds like, but it is what Ditto sounds like in the game. But using this Poke API, if you called this API right here, this link, uh, it will pull all of this JSON information, right? And so we could then take this API link, right? And then all right, there's a suggestion for working with APIs. Let's provide the user documentation on how to uh, work with an API using the Poke API as an example, providing an image of that Pokemon and a play button that will play its cry. And they can search through different names of Pokemon when you click on the link that's associated with that suggestion. All right. Understanding APIs and interacting with them. Love it. I'm going to give that an up though. Understanding documentation for language X, Y, or Z. For example, how do you understand the Python docs at docs.python.org? It's not always straightforward without some pre-existing knowledge. Lots of odd formatting. This is like you could spend a lifetime trying to understand the varying documentation of of whatever language you're working on. So I think in this regard, what's helped me is when I am learning a new language, I go in to that state of learning and understanding documentation with a feature build in mind, right? I think sometimes it's really difficult to look at code and look at this new language from the perspective of I want to learn this language. So think of it as you want to learn Spanish because you're visiting Mexico City. and you need to know how to get around, right? Like, give yourself a reason to understand the documentation. Go into it with a goal. Um, Otherwise, you know, what you open up to page one and you start like looking through it. That being said, let's look at Python documentation real quick. I haven't been here for a while. Um, this is not going to give you the dopaminergic
Job is done.
spree of learning something that you want out of this situation, right? What's the first place that you go to? You have some tutorials here that those might be kind of helpful. Um, Again, lots of text, you know. Some people this works for their brain. For me, like I'm still of the like I'm I'm 6 years old and I want a book with pictures in it, you know? Like it's very and then on top of that, when we go into the specific pages, like this is class objects. Class objects support two kinds of operations: attributes, references, and instantiation. Um, so now we have to know what attribute, references, and instantiation are, right? Um, and these are like super
Job is done.
abstract examples of what those things are. Again, I think uh, if I were to learn languages again from square one, I would not do it from this sort of like hacker rank, we're building like code toys for understanding the language. I would do it from the perspective of, why am I using Python in my application? Why would I use Python in my application? What can I build with Python that can't be built with another stack, right? Um, and then specifically, what am I trying to build here? And then as you like Python is a great kind of like base language. Any language that has you know, the sort of stuffs that make a programming language. Um, you start to build sort of a lexicon. All right, this is how Python handles classes. This is how Golang handles classes. This is how React pulls those classes. This is how, you know, and or Golang is handling my arrays weird because I'm setting them up like this is Python, right? We get like way off base if we're just like opening the documentation and being like, okay, where do I look for the things first? Um, let's see if this API. All right, so now our API is a link. It pulls up Pikachu. Cool. So this has a little bit of education on the API for whoever wanted to uh, learn how to use API. Uh, learn how to use for whoever wanted to learn how to use API. That's what this is going on here. I think maybe I don't know, but no, this is so the Pokey API, great place again to start with learning how to use APIs in your application is by using these free no sign up APIs, right? The Pokey API is one that I always go to because it's free. You don't have to sign up. You don't have to get an API key. Literally, like anytime you pull the code, it's gonna pull up Pikachu for you. So every API has an endpoint, right? This is our endpoint. When we pull up this endpoint, we're pulling up uh, essentially this page, Pikachu, right? Um, and so all of this information here is being constructed by our application's controller uh, into a view that then provides us way chiller kind of GUI for like what Pikachu is. And we could search for other Pokemon. Um, Charmander is a Pokemon. Mr. Mime. Okay. Um, Mr. Mime, maybe? No dots? I really want Mr. Mime to appear here. We're going to have an issue with Mr. Mime because he has a dot in his name. What number is Mr. Mime? He's 0122. Alright, so let's check 122. Oh, Mr. Mime. We can see here that they're using a hyphen instead of a dot. And why is that? Because this is an API that builds direct URLs, right? You can't type Mr. Mime here because it's going to give you a bad request. But by our studies of Unicode, will this work? Yes, it does. All right, Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime hyphen. Fetch. Mr. Mime. Wonderful. Psychic Fairy. Scariest Pokemon in the world. If you're somebody who just had Mr. Mimes, ugh, it's gross. So sorry. Like, what a freaky Pokemon. Anyways, yeah, so here's kind of the JavaScript code. So this is we call this a controller, or it's within the controller of our application. It's calling the function to fetch Pokemon, and then it's logging all of this and providing a response. We get this JSON response. And then you can do this yourself in your browser. That's what it's telling you, right? So, when you ever see something like this, where it's like telling you to open your browser's developer console, your inspector is helpful. It runs a little developer console in it at all times. So to get there, you can either right-click and press Inspect and go to the console over here, or Control-Shift-I, and then we can take this and we can paste it in here, and look, it's going to pull up a JSON response of Eevee, right? Interesting. There's a lot to unpack there, but this is basically a really solid starting point of understanding APIs. A lot of programs that you interact with on the internet are just pulling APIs. Some programs have nested APIs written within them. You could have a web app that calls its own APIs, essentially. So yeah, really fun. Anyways, freaky ass Mr. Mime. We don't really know what his deal is as a Pokemon, but we can learn about it because we built this little API. Back to suggestions. All right, so we're understanding APIs, we're interacting with them, we're reverse engineering them. Kind of understanding the documentation for languages. I feel like that may have sent you a bit on a spiral. My advice for that is understand through application, right? Now with the advent of AI, using Claude Code or using a LLM, a custom LLM of some sort, you can build your application. You can think about this through through how you're building, like what you're building, instead of just starting from initiating learning through reading documentation, which is going to be better for your mind when you have like this goal of building something. We're learning what classes do. We're learning what objects do. We're learning how to build a REST API because we want to make our online shop have like a custom ranking system. We want to build out this sort of like pattern. We want to build out like a little astrology site. We want to build out uh, a site that calls the the moon ephemeris, so we know what cycle the moon is in or whatever. These are all things that can be pulled from APIs, right? Um, Code organization architecture. So we've talked about this in class a lot, or in earlier classes, and organization and architecture is super important. When we build stuff in class, like just like throwing it up super fast, uh, the code isn't all that organized, right? So let's ask it, where, where does this code live in the project?
Job is done.
All right, so this page specifically actually tells me that the code is more organized than other code that we've developed in class. But sometimes when you get Claude to write code, it'll give you one index file that's thousands of lines long. That's just like inline CSS, inline JavaScript, gross, 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 no organization, right? Zero organization. What this website is using in order to get you this data and deploy it quickly to make this suggestion page is something called MVC architecture, model, view, and controller. So we see right here that it's saying this feature spans these files. We have a model file, which is the model is the data, how we're interacting with the data. I have this analogy of like a kitchen, right, or a restaurant. The model is the kitchen. It's where you get your commissary, your groceries dropped off. The chefs are in there. Back of house is in there, making sure that we have enough plates and utensils and ingredients to make the pasta, the pizza, the stuff that we need, right? Uh, and then the views part of the MVC, that's what we're seeing as a user, right? So when we go to this page, this is a view, right? This is also something that can be uh, within the code as uh, here. Let's go. Blah, 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 blah. Suggestions.py here. Um, that's its controller, right? So a little bit confusing, right? The way this is set up because it falls a bit outside of MVC architecture, but the view is your HTML, your CSS, your styling, your form inputs, right? The controller is what makes those form inputs work, right? So when I'm on here and I type in, uh, how do you spell the Jinxie? What's the, or is it just Jinx? What's the lady Mr. Mime called? Anyways, I'm blanking. Psyduck
Oh,
is what what was her name?
Jinx, Jinx.
mental.
Yeah, it's not pulling up Jinx. What number is, oh, JY.
Oh.
Yeah. We learned something today. At the very least we learned how to spell Jinx correctly. And Jinx is an ice type. Interesting. I did not know that. Mr. Mime's a fairy. Jinx is ice. Um, Weird. So how does this work? Um, the view, when we put Jinx in here and we fetch it, we're calling that REST API, right? So this like Pokemon API thing actually doesn't have a model that's associated with it, right? The Pokemon API, the model is wherever they're storing the data for the Pokemon API at pokeapi.co. They're handling the data for us, right? But we need a controller to be able to call this REST API. And so when we press Jinx, we fetch it. That's a fetch. It's a post, and it's a get, and it gets the JSON response and prints it on this wonderful little page. So MVC models are like the kitchen, back of house. Views are like the menu, the vibe of the restaurant, the music playing, the table mat, where you're sitting down, like what you're looking at, and the controller is the waiter, our front of house staff that brings you your food. It's like a loose kind of analogy, but that's kind of like so. Anyways, when you set up MVC architecture, it ends up creating a more organized file system in which, if I want to update something about how data is being pulled, it's not going to affect the beautiful aesthetic view that I set up for that data. Um, or it might affect it in certain ways, but it's a way to like not make these sort of aggressive changes to your code or code breaking changes by changing different aspects. And it's a good way to think about your code too. Where is the data being stored? How is the data being called? How do we treat the data? Um, how is and then with the so that's the model. With the view, how do we present the data to the user? How is the user interacting with our page? And with the controller, what's the core functionality of what we're trying to do here? Uh, yeah, the DOM and the loop. Yeah, if your brain kind of breaks on MVC, then like let's get back into that headset or into that mind space of like sort of um, thinking about that anti-pattern of the monolith God file, that's 2,000 lines long, and it'll lead you on that just like down that rabbit hole of because when you have, let's say you have all of your content stored in a server.py or server.js or whatever, and you get one line of code wrong there, a little thing, like you mess up the naming convention for a specific template, and uh, you know, you misplace a hyphen or you spell cheese with a Z instead of an S. Um, that could make it. These are like things that I've actually done with. I spelled cheese with a Z instead of an S once in code, and it screwed up an entire project because I was working from this this God file that was thousands of lines long, right? And when you make those mistakes, you never make them again. But also, what we can learn from that is organizing something in a more object-oriented or MVC structure. When you build features, putting those features into appropriate files. In class, we're like spinning up applications on a daily basis within the hour, so we lose the nuggets of wisdom of organization because organization is something that takes time outside of just the vibe coding, right? It also helps to provide context for Claude. But what you end up doing when you focus too hard on like I feel like the process for me has gone like, all right, Claude can do this. Let's have Claude do something more ambitious, right? And so then uh I do the most ambitious. I try to get Claude to do the most ambitious thing. Claude fails at it, and I walk away from that situation as somebody who's had development experience previous to AI to vibe coding and all this chaotic cool stuff. And I'm like, all right, it must have been something wrong with the way that I prompted Claude. I'm missing context, right? Because there's no way that he could have or that this could have context for what I'm trying to do. So then you go at it. All right, you take the ambitious idea and you make a specification. You make a markdown file, an open spec that clearly states what you were trying to do. Claude does it a little bit better because you have that specification. You got a little bit more organized, but there's still things that it can't do. And so then you break it down once more, and you're like, oh, maybe this is too ambitious. Maybe I should just like break down the thing that I'm working on into feature builds, right? And so you do your little feature build thing. Claude nails those features, but when it comes to like wiring things together, there still is this lack of context. And that's what's important to understand, like about the state of where we're at with AI and coding, with learning to code at this moment. The models are the AI models will not understand your code for you. You have to understand what you're trying to do with the code. When I ask Claude to just like come up with something, get creative with it, that's like imagine if that's what your client was saying to you. You check into your job at an office and your boss is like, "Hey, like we got to build this thing. I kind of want it to do this. I don't really know if I want it to do that, but just jazz it up, get creative with it, do your own thing, like, and then it just you botch the project because you weren't given enough of a constraint, you weren't given enough direction. Context engineering, yes, most challenging part. So managing context is also a place where you can expose whatever you're building to the most vulnerabilities, right? One thing I've noticed about Claude, specifically Claude Code, is it kind of fails at basic user flows. You get a user to sign up, an email gets sent out to the admin. You check through this thing. They're added to a specific role with specific permissions. And that's because depending on how you're using Claude Code, you might be using it from your local machine or a VPS, or you might even be using the actual application. Claude doesn't have context of what state that you're in, right? So when Claude went and deleted that entire data cloud prod database, it's because the vibe coder, the person at the other side of the keyboard, never told Claude, hey, we have a prod database with live data in it. Do not make any changes to the prod database. We are working on the staging server today. We are working on the dev server today. Like, so nowhere in its context did it understand that there was this critical state that it had to avoid, right? So something that, if those of you that remember Drew from previous Learn to Code math classes, they introduced us to OpenSpec, which is this great OpenSpec is like it builds out specification files, and Claude like hooks into it. So you could be like, hey Claude, make an open spec, a thorough open spec file for I'll do it. Hey Claude, can you make a thorough open spec file for a grocery uh, scraping project? We want to be able to scrape the prices of groceries from major grocery providers. Uh, and I want thorough user stories and a roadmap for this project. So now it's working on this open spec. But what we get with these open spec files is we get these and here Control Shift V if you're in a Markdown file on VS Code will open up a the formatted Markdown. So what we get with these OpenSpec files is like readable specification files. Claude loves writing these, and when Claude writes these, then you can point Claude to what was written through OpenSpec, and they read very much like a specifications for a coding project. You can go through and edit it. What I love the most is it has these like it sets up parallel tasks, right? Parallel tasks, no dependencies. So Claude will read this and it will send agent A to fix the bugs. This is an example from a previous project where we wanted to build sort of like a poly market for betting on whether or not your friends would complete certain tasks. A little bit dark designy, but still fun. So Agent A will fix bugs. Agent D pins the UI. Agent E tests setup. They can all do that at the same time, and so then Claude would send them off at the same time, which is cool. So, but we want user stories. This was more for security stuff. Let's see if we have any user stories. We'll see what Claude's making here. Anyways, they're getting to work on that. OpenSpec, check it out. You can point Claude at downloading it. Spec-driven development for AI coding assistance. I literally opened Claude Code and was just like, can you install OpenSpec? And I gave it the link to this GitHub. But you can also install it globally with this npm command.
Job is done.
For people in the chat, I think this is a great kind of jumping off point for starting your own sort of SDLC project within. I mean, it's the pre-work for the SDLC class is getting OpenSpec on your machine. Yeah, I know it seemed like we're like bouncing all over the place, but can't like what I'm trying to show is we're all like interest like whatever we're like trying to learn, we can irk that out of the AI to like help us with whatever we're doing. But we're also like all interested in different sort of branches on the skill tree of code, and that wherever you're interested in, that kind of like, first of all,
Job is done.
I think about it from this sort of like paradox of the things that challenge you the most with like thought forms and learning something are generally like the sort of dark paths, the dark caves that you need to explore, right? Like, if you really don't want to learn about something, it's because I'm sorry about you, but you might need to learn about that thing. And that might be like your great strength is this thing that's initially a perceived weakness, right? Um, the things that elude us um, actually can be like really great stepping stones to understanding more about code, about any sort of process. Um, but yeah, let's see what Claude made.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Uh, for OpenSpec, I just downloaded it. How much setup is there? I didn't really see any instructions or anything.
Set
Is
up
it
with
just gonna like, yeah?
so you need to have like Claude or a custom LLM that has access uh, to OpenSpec, right? So
Oh, I
for
was
for
looking at that list. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
for me, it's like I tell Claude to make a open spec file, and sometimes Claude like botches what open spec means. And so if you type like, hey, like make it like with open spec the program, it'll like get it onto the right sort of track. Um, but running it is a matter of prompting your AI to run it.
I see.
It's not like uh, you know, open spec dot this file hyphen, like there's no like flags or anything. You're prompting
Just instruct
AI.
him to do it.
Yeah. Um, and I honestly, it's like one of those things that like I have gotten a little bit smooth brain about. So there might be a way to like run open spec in like, but I wouldn't know because I always get Claude to do it. So it's like one of those things. I think like
Gotcha.
we're like de-skilling in certain ways, right? That's a you're seeing it like real
A
time, like
regression is real. Yeah, that's for a lot of things. Like, for instance, like certain tool use. Just in the modern age, we don't. I don't know. We don't have like rooms full of herbs anymore because we don't need that stuff. So we don't know how to alchemy anymore. Yeah, just generally, it makes sense what you're saying.
yeah, yeah. It's so it looks like it made this grocery scraper. Where did it put it? At the project root? All right. And so this is your open spec grocery scraper, web scraping platform that collects, compares, and tracks grocery prices from major U.S. grocery providers. Problem statement, this varies, blah, blah, blah. And so then it sets up your like proposed scraping method. We talked about how these might not work. But your user stories, right? Um, this is what somebody in the YouTube chat. Um, your user stories, we have a basic item search. As a user, I want to search for a grocery item by name so that I can see its price across multiple stores. Uh, as a user, I want to browse items by category. As a user, I want to set my zip code so that I only see prices from stores near me. So, remember when we were talking about documentation earlier in class today? And how if you're digging through like Python support docs, that it can be kind of like confusing. Like you have this like chaotic like cognitive overload of all these abstract ideas, right? Like one way to simplify that would be by going into the documentation with an app build in mind, a feature build in mind. You're trying to sort of uh, target what you're getting from the documentation itself, right? The user story is like the evolution of that, right? So not only do we have the app build in mind, but now we have what the user is asking from the app. And user stories, if you aren't familiar with them, they're these sort of statements that are key to building any sort of application, where you talk in the first person as a user. That's like generally the format of it, and then you you basically describe objective experience on the application. Sometimes it's mostly like input and output. As a user, I want to set my zip code so that I only see prices from stores near me. Um, and the way that the OpenSpec lays it out is pretty standard format. I've seen it done differently, but it does the given, the when, the then, the and, right? So the givens are that this user has set their location to 90210 Beverly Hills. Is that Beverly Hills? Yeah, uh, it's Beverly Hills, of course. Anyways, I've set my location in 90210. When I search for any item that, so the when is just like, we're playing like code Mad Libs, but the when is like the user action, right? When I search for any item, then I only see results from stores within a configurable radius. So the when's the user action, the then is the output, right? Uh, and sometimes and I see the specific store location. So Walmart, Hollywood Boulevard. Um, Pretty straightforward, but this sort of wording, this sort of specification actually helps Claude to build what you're trying to build in with more clarity, right? The issue here is that Claude generated these user stories, right? I didn't write these user stories. This is not an application that I provided context to Claude past the initial I want a grocery scraper, a web scraping platform that collects, compares, and tracks grocery prices. I said grocery scraping project, and Claude took the ball and ran with it. This might not be the application that I want to build. That's why it's important to go back and sort of fix those things. Um, so yeah, we're over time. We're gonna be doing class again tomorrow at 10 a.m. I know this one kind of felt all over the place, but I wanted to thread the needle on some of these, you know, these core things that we wanted to learn about. So if anyone has any questions, comments, concerns, I'll spend about a minute or two answering those, and then we'll wrap it up for the day. And I'll see you tomorrow.
I have one. I would like to just get like a little bit more knowledge on MCP servers, like just a general breakdown of why, what, and like when they're used.
MCP.
Yeah.
All right. So MCP is model context of protocol. Um, uh, so when we first started using MCP, like when I first started using it this time last year, it was crazy because it solved this issue of like having sort of like access context persistence with with AI was just a bummer before that, right? So when you would use MCP versus just working in your AI of choice, is if you were like it comes in extreme handy when you're building these coding projects where your AI needs to have access to context across a project, and not just the chat itself. Um, so yeah, it's setting up I mean, like MCP server um is when I'm running MCPs, I'm usually doing it locally. Um, if you have like an MCP server, um, that would be to like if you had like a VPS set up somewhere with an MCP on it. I don't know. The use case would be like working on a project, not locally. Um, but I would personally advise against having MCP accessible from a server somewhere for like a larger team of people. Um, but yeah, where MCPs come in handy versus just using your AI locally is that your AI now has context of the project that you're working on, can pull open different files, can it's model context protocol, right? So it can do kind of the CRUD functionality of files that you give it access to. I know that's kind of like a backwards answer. Is there
And
a
I just
specific?
wanted good general knowledge.
Yeah, cool, sweet. Um,
Help me wrap my head around it just a little bit more.
yeah, I mean, like a great way to get into MCP is if you have Claude set up on your computer, give it access to like a sandboxed project file, and either through your IDE or through Claude itself, you could set it to have you can toggle on MCP for that file, and then work in that project file. um, uh, yeah, MCP is just like a way to like reduce the sort of context drift, inaccuracy in responses. um, you get less hallucinations because it can read files, run code, use the data, right? All right. Anyways, I am going to head out. Y'all have been great. I will see you tomorrow.
Thank you, sir. Uh, you guys said there was class Monday as well.
Yeah, we do Monday through Thursday.
A word? I did.